Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala ashrafil anbiya al-mursaleen wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Welcome to what is effectively lesson 8 of the series of Tajweed lessons that we're going through. In the first 7 lessons, you'll have seen that we had covered a little bit of Tajweed theory and gave you guided practical steps of how to implement that theory into the recitation of Surah Al-Fatihah. In the next 6, 7 to 10 lessons, we're not doing anything new. What we're going to do is look at the same theory that we've covered, which is the itmaam al-harakaat, the opening and closing, the upper jaw going up and the lower jaw going down, and the rounding of the lips whilst reciting Quran, which is the lesson 1 of the series that we went through, and then all the points of articulation, all the makhaarij and huroof that we went through in the subsequent lessons that followed that. And in each occasion we went back to Surah Al-Fatihah and we looked how to recite or implement those rules that we were covering in terms of theory into Surah Al-Fatihah itself. Now for the next few lessons that we're going to be doing, we're going to go through each surah from the back of the Quran, beginning with Surah Al Naas, and looking to implement the same theory that we've already covered so we can get a good grasp on what we've done so far, understand it better. Repetition always makes things easier to understand and to learn. And so what we're going to do is do about 7 to 10 surahs of practicing the theory that we've already done before we start learning other rules of Tajweed and how to implement those also into our recitation, inshallah. So in Surah Al Naas, there's a lot of elements that we've already covered whilst we were doing Surah Al-Fatihah that will repeat themselves when we're going through Surah Al Naas. And that's the benefit of having spent 7 lessons on doing Surah Al Naas, because the elements now are going to be always repeating themselves, and hopefully there'll be an easier grasp of things and how you can implement that theory into the recitation of the Quran. So let's look at Surah Al Naas. I'll recite the surah from beginning to end, and then we'll come back and then break it down into each verse at a time and what to look for, and then we'll finish off with the recitation again of myself at the end, and that will inshallah help us understand better what's required from us in terms of itmaam al-harakaat and makhaarij and huroof in order to recite the surah better. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. So let's look through Surah Al Naas again and break down each verse. So let's begin. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. All the elements of the Basmala we've already done. The Ba with the jaw going down, the Sin elongated. Bismillah. The upper jaw going up. And a note about the upper jaw going up is that we've trialed the lessons that we've done for Surah Al-Fatihah, and people have sent their recitation in. Alhamdulillah, we've seen that the lessons do make a difference in helping people improve the recitation of the Quran. And so when I talk about the upper jaw going up, you also need to make sure that the lips stay back when you do that, so in order to get the correct sound. So for example, when you say Bismillah, la, you get this sound when your lips are forward, and Bismillah, when your lips come back, you get a you get the correct sound. So you need to have your lips coming back whilst the jaw goes up when you have a fatha followed by an alif. So Bismillah. Right? Formation of the lips is important. Upper jaw going up, these lips coming back. Bismillahir Rahman. Same thing. Opening the upper jaw going up and the lips coming back. Rahmanir Rahim. And then hold the meme when you stop. So there's nothing in terms of the basmala which we all haven't covered already. Then let's go through Surah Al Naas verse by verse in order to break down what we're doing. So we start with a qaf with a dhamma in it, qu, which means that the lips are going to go forward, concentrating on the edges here. Qu, qul. And you see the formation of my lips that I'm going back to the makhaarij of the lam. And we already know the makhaarij of the lam is from, almost from the canine tooth, and the edge of the tongue that's there that you use in order to do that. Going up and touching the gums that are there. You go, qul, qul, making the lam clear. Because if we don't do that, we're going to be too fast and the lam is not going to be audible in our recitation. So in terms of itmaam al-harakaat, qul, qul. And a lot of people sometimes what they do, or not a lot of people, but often individuals what they do is that the lips go before the sound of the qaf or dhamma is made. So you're already here, qul, and that's your starting point. Starting point is here, and you need to pronounce the dhamma and the qaf at the same time. Qul, qul, qul. And so that's the first part. Qul a. We've already done, again, upper jaw going up and the lips staying back. Qul a. And if you don't have those lips back, you get a, although your upper jaw's gone up. So that's again from the feedback that's received, that you need to make sure that you concentrate on your lips coming back and the upper jaw going up. Qul a, qul a'udhu. Now we've already done, when we've done al-isti'adha, a'udhu. It's the exact same thing here. A'u. Our lips are already pouted, our lips are coming out to the front. Ru. And then you've got the dal, tip of the tongue touching the middle two teeth at the bottom. A'udhu. Zu. We're already here, and it's the tongue that's doing the work. Qul a'udhu bi rabbin nas. Here again, bi, kasra and the ba. A'udhu bi rabbi. Here when you've got the ba, you've got a shadda on it, and the shadda means that the little w that's on top of the ba, which means that we're pronouncing two bas. And we've already said that when you pronounce the ba, as your lips coming together, and the amount of pressure that you put on them is how you create the ba. And why I'm making this signal with my fingers is that sometimes people have a tendency to pull in their lips. That's incorrect. Birabbin nas. So to make sure that you're not pulling in your lips, you're not, which would be incorrect. Qul a'udhu bi rabbin. And this noon is, again, it's got a shadda in it, and you need to elongate the sound of that noon, which we'll cover later. But in this time, all you need to know is that it's elongated. And the length that you elongate for is the length that I'm elongating for at the moment. Birabbin nas. And I tend not to use counting on a finger. If you're thinking why that is the case, then sometimes if you use counting of fingers, then young people tend to do it very fast. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And someone that's elderly is going to use the fingers slower. So it's not an accurate way of telling people of how to hold on that sound for. So the best way is to do it by ear. Listen to how long I'm doing it for. Birabbin nas. Or listen to recitations of the Quran from renowned reciters and listen to how long they hold the sound for, and do the same. So, and then when we finish at the end of the first verse, then we're opening up, the upper jaw is going up, the lips are staying back. Birabbin nas. And then the Seen, which we've covered so many times in Surah Al-Fatihah and the Basmala, it needs to have this elongated sound when you're reciting the Seen, a burst of air, and the continuation of the sound of the letter Seen when you're doing that. So when you bring all those elements together, that is how you have the first verse. قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ. Maliki, exact same as how we done in Surah Al-Fatihah. Apart from the Maliki, it's a bit longer here. Malikin, Malikin, Maliki, Malikin Nas. Again, you're just repeating what you've done in the first verse. The noon with a shadda on it, make sure you pronounce two, elongate, open the upper jaw going up, and then ending on the Seen with an elongated sound on the Seen, or slightly elongated. Malikin Nas. Ila. The next verse number 3, E. So here we've already done that. The kasras have a double E sound. E. Ila. So you're going bottom jaw going down, and then you're opening up your upper jaw is going up. Ila ilahin nas. And then the ha is that ha that is pronounced from the bottom of the throat, which we already covered. It's a deeper sound, ha. Ilahin nas. Again, upper jaw going up, lips staying back whilst you do that, and then when you stop in the Seen, to have that short burst of sound and air when you stop in the Seen. Ilahin nas. Here again is a rule that we'll cover later, but here if you again elongate, and what you want to do is get your tongue to sit on the next letter that you're just about to pronounce, which is the Sheen. Min sharri ra. Again, if you go back to how we were doing the letters and the makhaarij, if you got al, you know where al is pronounced from, which is the edges of the tongue, al, and then if you say an, ar, you're slowly bopping or moving forward towards the front of your mouth. And so that is how to identify where the ra is pronounced for, and then we can go back and say min sharri, and again you'll notice there's a shadda and a ra, which means that you need to pronounce two ra's from that from the makhaarij. Sharri, ri, and your lower jaw going down a little. Min sharril, and so you're holding the lam again. Every time the lam has a sukoon in it, we go back and hold the sound of it for just slightly longer than normal. Min sharril was. To make it clear, we have to do that in order to make the lam clear in recitation, to make sure that we stop on it or pause on it just for a little while longer. Min sharril wa. Wow comes from the lips. Wa. You often have people say wa. Wa. Get the lips to open. The itmaam and harakaat working here will help you correct any hopefully mistakes that you might make in terms of the recitation or the sound that's being created. Min sharril wa. You can see that my lips are doing all the work here. Wa. Again, upper jaw going up, and the lips staying back, not being lazy and letting them stay forward. Wa. That's the incorrect sound. Wa. What's the difference between both, which I'm stressing today, is that the lips stay back and the upper jaw goes up. Min sharril waswasil. Again, consistency is key whilst we're reciting Quran, making sure that you again identify the lam with the sukoon in it, and then stay on it a little bit longer. Min sharril waswasil khannas. Again, the kha, which we've done from the top of the throat, and then the noon and then opening up when we have the alif, and the upper jaw, and then the sin. As, as. Throughout the surah, every verse, that's how we're stopping on each of the verses. So that verse again, min sharril waswasil khannas. Moving on to the next verse, alladhi yuwaswisu, all from here. Because I've got the sin, so I need to come back. Yuwaswisu, yuwaswisu. Get used to that in order to make sure that you get all the accents correct. Alladhi yuwaswisu fi, again the fa, from just the middle or the central incisors from the upper jaw, touching the what we call the wet part or the inner wet part of the bottom lip. Fi. Okay. Alladhi yuwaswisu fi sudurin nas. Got the sod, got the dal, got the waw. Our lips need to move forward from the sides here. Sudu, and then back down for the ra. Sudurin nas. It's the only sod in the whole surah, so make sure that it's different from the sin in pronunciation. الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس. And then the last verse, minal. Don't get lazy towards the end of the surah. Make sure you're consistent in pronouncing the lam correctly, and just pausing there for a second. Minal jinnati. Noon again with a shadda on it. Make sure the same length and consistency with the rest of the surah. Minal jinnati wan nas. And that's the end of the surah. So consistency, because there's a lot of things that repeat in Surah Al Naas. The end of every verse, we've got a few lams in there, and the scenes throughout. So when you're listening to the recitation, look out for these things. Itmaam al-harakaat, extremely important, and knowing it can fix a lot of mistakes, as you've gathered from the previous lessons as well. And knowing where to pronounce the letters from as well is very important. So that is Surah Al Naas. I'll recite it once again, and inshallah I hope there's benefit in it. Jazakumullah khairan. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة